From Elanco, this is Rediscovering the Power of Healthy Animals, the podcast that explores how healthy animals, from cats to cows, can help us overcome some of today's most critical challenges. I'm your host for today, Julie Lawless. You're listening to episode 14, We Are All Ears, the benefits of reading to pets. On today's episode, we're going to talk about how pets can help us improve literacy and reading skills. And what a timely topic, as the school experience has shifted significantly during COVID-19. Did you know that 2/3 of children globally are attending class virtually? And many parents, and I'm one of them, are also working from home, balancing jobs while taking on additional roles to care for our families and help teach them at home. But did you know there's one member of the family who can help you that you may not have even thought of? Your pet. We know pets support our mental health and social connection, and they can also play an important role as a partner in learning. So while we're all spending all this time at home together, our pets can encourage kids to get excited about reading and positively impact their educational experience. Here to discuss how our pets can foster youth literacy during a challenging learning landscape, I'm joined by this month's guest, Mary Margaret Callahan. Mary Margaret's the Chief Mission Officer at Pet Partners, and I have the great honor to serve as the board chair at Pet Partners. So I know Mary Margaret's fantastic work very well, overseeing the organization's therapy animal program and grassroots advocacy initiatives. And I'm also excited to say that Pet Partners, which, as many of you know, is the nation's leader in promoting positive human-animal interventions, has also teamed up with Elanco to promote its initiative, We Are All Ears, that's encouraging families and children to read to their pets. Hey, thanks for joining us today, Mary Margaret. I am so excited to have you here with me on the podcast. Thank you.
I'm delighted to be here, Julie. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, you're welcome. So many of us can attest that our pets play an important role in the family. We talk about this quite a bit at Pet Partners. You know, they help us improve our mental and social well-being. But I'm curious about what's the connection between children and pets and how this bond can foster literacy?
Well, I think most pet owners would agree that their animal family members enhance their lives, right? And research bears this out. In a national study, 74% of pet owners reported mental health improvements from pet ownership. Now, when we think about this for children specifically, children with a bond to a beloved pet can translate into an increase in positive behaviors. Those positive behaviors such as motivation, confidence, reduced anxiety, increased task engagement, and positive attitude can then contribute to a conducive learning environment. And that couldn't be more important than right now when we're all stuck at home and life feels very different. And what school looked very different last year for so many kids. And so when we think about how animals can sort of improve all these positive behaviors, and we can apply that to a learning environment. So the thing that's exciting to me about this is that we do see this translate into improved reading performance. So a popular pre-COVID activity for Pet Partners therapy animal teams was to bring their therapy animal to a local school or a library so that kids could practice reading to them. At first blush, you might think, sure, the presence of a dog or a cat or even a rabbit in school was exciting and something kids looked forward to. That makes sense. I get excited when I get to meet new animals. So that doesn't seem shocking, but a study in 2017 did show that it actually made a difference. Researchers saw that reading aloud to a therapy dog tended to increase children's scores on a test of oral reading fluency much more than reading aloud to peers. So we're starting to see some research that supports more than what we just think of as, oh, the kids were excited about that. Oh, the kids thought it would be fun to meet a bunny or a guinea pig. there's another great example with children as young as in kindergarten. And they had reading groups, and there was a reading group that had a dog that the kids read to, and then a reading group where they just read to one another. The kids who were part of that dog reading group achieved higher end-of-year reading scores compared to the control group that didn't have a therapy dog included. So there is some research that does show that some of those positive behaviors do translate into better learning outcomes.
Wow, that's amazing. And I would even say, on a personal note, our son has learning differences, and, his school they have 3 dogs, and that is part of their curriculum, right? We have seen improvement in his reading skills, and we know that really works for him. So it's seeing it plus hearing the research. It makes me sort of think about this pandemic. And I mean, I think your daughter, my kids, they started the school year virtually, and they're still at home. How do you think pets at home can encourage learning? And, why are they such great listeners?
Well, I mean, I think about it this way, and I think I've seen this, as you read to a pet, no pet is going to stop to correct your pronunciation. They offer no judgment, right? If you're an emerging reader, who may have anxiety about being corrected or being wrong, the silent companionship of this animal allows that reader to work at their own pace. And that's a comfort, not to feel like you're trying to meet anyone's external expectations, because quite frankly, your dog does not have expectations of your reading ability.
That's really true.
So, if we think about those positive behaviors we just were talking about, right? Those positive behaviors that you get from spending time with animals, confidence, motivation, reduction in anxiety. Below average readers often demonstrate increased stress while reading, but the presence of a pet can counteract that to some extent. And if you're counteracting that stress, you've got a learner who may increase the amount of practice they're going to put in, and that can result in more improvement in skills with the pet than without. So we're not saying, that you're only going to learn to read if you get to read to an animal. It's about enhancing that experience. And heavens, we all know that we could use some enhanced experiences right now.
That's right. And it is very interesting to see a child who does get stressed out when they're trying to read, and just even the length that they'll read to the pet versus, you're right, reading in the schoolroom setting without a pet. It's just, it's very inspiring to see.
Oh, my daughter will absolutely read longer to her pets than she'll read to me. And I'm a trusted figure. I would like to think I'm not a threatening presence in her educational landscape, but she would much prefer to read to an animal, or she'll read longer to an animal than she will to me.
Interesting. So what tips can you give for families, to help them successfully read to their pets? What do you need to know to make this a really fun, exciting, enriching learning experience?
Well, I think it at this point in time, it starts coming down to your individual pet that you're choosing you want to read to. And the first step in my mind is to make sure everyone is comfortable. Right? So let's say you have a large dog. If your child's not going to be comfortable sitting on the floor reading to your dog because your dog's too big to put anywhere else, you're going to have to figure out, your reader needs to be comfortable and in a good spot, but your animal needs to be comfortable so they don't become a distraction. My daughter likes to read to her guinea pigs. We have 2 guinea pigs, Penelope and Winifred. And guinea pigs they're great pets. We love them, but guinea pigs are also prey animals. So they're wired to be on the lookout for threats. So when we take them out of their contained area, what we've discovered is they're much better listeners when they can be in their little blanket tunnel next to her, because they feel protected, they feel safe, and they can relax and settle in, maybe nibble on a little parsley, and then they can read. My daughter can read without distraction because they're not wiggling around or making noises or doing things like that. I mean, that's one example, but really, it's important to think for families who don't happen to have a dog, or have a different kind of animal. You can do this with fish. You can do it with your hamster who's maybe doesn't ever come out of its cage.
Oh, that's a great idea.
There's lots of ways you can think very creatively about how you want to read. It does not have to be everyone sitting on a blanket together, looking at the pages in a book. And so that's where I say comfort is really number one. Make sure your reader's comfortable, make sure your pet is comfortable, and you're going to minimize distraction. The other thing, I think, especially if you're reading to a dog, we call it pausing for petting. So we have several dogs as part of our household. Some of them are better listeners than others. But the big thing, I think, is that what we discovered, especially with one of our younger dogs who is a little more energetic, when my daughter turns the page, she stops and gives the dog a pet. So that pausing for petting is a nice chance to positively reinforce for the dog that they're sitting and being nice, and it's a nice break. It's calming for her. And then everybody kind of stays settled while they're reading. And then finally, I'll always advocate for rewarding your pet for good behavior, particularly at the end of a reading session, whether that's a treat or a round of playing ball or whatever they enjoy. That's a nice way to end a reading session on a positive note for everybody.
And it's really interesting to hear you talk about the pet. Right? I mean, we're talking about the benefits for our children. There certainly must be some benefit for the pet, and there seems to be some concern around making sure you're really watching your pet's cues. And, that's one of the things I love about Pet Partners is that, Pet Partners really cares about the pet as well as people. So it sounds like they're in a few of those tips you're saying, pay attention to your pet too and how your pet's feeling.
Absolutely. One of the key tenets of sort of the Pet Partners Therapy Animal Program, which I think applies here just as well, is that idea that your animal should enjoy interactions with you, not just tolerate them. And so you might be able to force your cat to sit next to your child and let them read them. But if the cat is not enjoying it, this is not going to end up being a positive experience for everyone involved. So you do need to sort of read those cues. And like with anything you're doing with a pet, start small, build up over time. Don't expect to sit down and read a chapter book. It's probably not the time to, knock out Harry Potter the first time through. Stop and do some things and build up that expectation of how this is how we do things in our reading time. And many pets are going to enjoy that interaction, that time with you, and they're going to start to enjoy it as much as your reader will.
That's really good advice. Are there other resources that are available? We've got your great advice here that you've given us, but are there other resources for the We Are All Ears initiatives that would help families?
Yeah, so, for anyone who decides they're going to sign up for We Are All Ears, you have access to a variety of some printable resources that might be of value to you. So a reading log, sometimes kids are motivated by keeping track of what they've read, how long they've read. There are bookmark templates with animals that you can cut out and color and use for your younger readers. We have a great bingo card. So if you're trying to encourage your reader to read different types of books and different things, you can work towards bingo. We also have a certificate of completion, and there's a great reading list there that has books not just broken down by sort of younger readers and older readers, but also by animal type. So if you've got a kid who's crazy about horses, we've got some suggestions for horse books for you.
Cool.
So lots of options there to kind of get you jump started in your reading at home process.
That's really cool. And Mary Margaret, where should our listeners go to sign up for We Are All Ears?
So anyone who's interested in signing up or learning more about We Are All Ears, you can go to petpartners.org/allears. all ears. And you've got the opportunity to sign up, take a pledge, and have access to those great resources.
That's awesome. Thank you. Okay, before we wrap up, I want to ask you each of our Fast 5 questions. So we do this with everybody. So we ask 5 questions that just helps us get to know you a little bit better. Okay, and so are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. How would you describe your job to a child in 1 sentence?
Oh, well, I would say that Pet Partners helps people with wonderful pets share them with other people to make their lives better.
Oh, I love that. That's really awesome. Okay, what's your favorite animal?
So if you were to talk to my parents, they would tell you that for years, for every holiday, for every birthday, I begged for a horse. Begged for a horse, Julie, for far too long.
I bet you did. I bet you did.
I did. I was convinced that if my dad would stop being so selfish and park his car in the garage, we could convert the garage into a stable pretty easily, and I didn't see what the problem was.
Brilliant.
So when I started working with Pet Partners, I had the opportunity to meet some miniature horses that I just loved. We have some amazing miniature horses registered as therapy animals.
Cool.
But then, Julie, I met my first miniature donkey, and I was in love. So really, I have 3 miniature donkeys as pets that live on my farm, and I cannot imagine my life without them. They are wonderful and my favorite animal.
Okay, so I'm gonna bust the Fast 5 and ask you a 6th, which is, what are their names?
So I have Huck, Foxy, and Jackson.
Oh, very cool. I love it. Okay, so who are your heroes or role models in your industry?
So if I think about my industry very broadly, human-animal bond, I have to say that my heroes are veterinarians and their veterinary staff. As somebody who has a lot of pets, we have come to rely on our amazing veterinary clinics and veterinarians and the work that they do that enables us all to have healthy pets who stay safe is unbelievable. And I tip my hat to them every time I see them. I've been known to stop by with cookies. I just love veterinarians. They're amazing.
That's the greatest answer ever. We love that answer. Okay, so what recent podcasts or books would you recommend? I mean, other than this podcast.
Other than this podcast, of course.
Yeah.
So I will say that being at home so much, like we all have, I've been zeroed in sort of a reading area. And about 1 million years ago, not 1 million, but apparently I looked it up this morning. The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up by Marie Kondo came out in 2011, which I can't believe it was that long ago.
Yeah.
Yes. And then more recently, I discovered The Home Edit. And so I like things about creating space because I think what maybe I didn't realize as much as I have now is how much our mood and sort of our well-being is influenced by the space that we're in. And so I find that really interesting. It's more than just having a tidy house. It's really, for me, about I choose to surround myself with things that bring me joy and that things that make me happy. And quite frankly, a lot of that is pets. I surround myself with pets and animals because that makes me happy.
That's very neat. Okay, so my last question for you. What is today's greatest challenge that animals can positively impact? I mean, other than what we just talked about.
I really have to say that social isolation is probably the top of my list, right? And that was even pre-COVID, right? We think about a lot of the work that our Pet Partners teams do, which is going in and making conversation and sharing their wonderful animals with people who then reap the benefits of that interaction, both with pets and with humans. I'm a big fan of Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was our 19th Surgeon General, who's done a lot of writing on social isolation and pets. And I just think that animals really have the power to connect people, and that is a great benefit.
Wow, it's really amazing. If you've ever had the honor to go into a hospital or a nursing home, and I've had that honor with our Elanco Pet Partners team, and we've gone into Riley Children's Hospital in Indianapolis, and to see children who have been in the oncology ward for an extended period of time. And sometimes they're there alone, right? Because parents need to work, and you just go in and they light up, and they may be having a really hard day, and it changes everything, and it's amazing. You just wouldn't think it would have that big of an effect, but it really does.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more.
And that is why the work you do, Mary Margaret, is so, so, so incredible and so valuable. And we value you and Pet Partners so much. And this We Are All Ears initiative it's going to be so much fun. And it's going to help a lot of us parents that might be struggling out there. It's still hard, right, to do your job and to have kids at home. Oof.
It's a brave new world. And so I'm suggesting that everyone recruits their pets into this effort.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay, Mary Margaret, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners today?
I've really enjoyed being here. I think the one thing I'll close with is that if you have a pet who loves people, who has a strong bond with you, and has basic obedience skills, and you might be interested in giving back to your community through volunteerism, I'd encourage you to explore becoming a therapy animal team. Pet Partners registers 9 different species, not just dogs, and we provide rigorous training for pet owners and the support you need to be successful in a variety of environments, from visiting hospitals, like Julie mentioned, and nursing homes, to reading with kids once school is back in session. So you can find more information, including a quiz to see if you might make a good team, at www.petpartners.org.
Well, thank you, Mary Margaret, for joining us. This has been so much fun, and we would love to have you back sometime to talk to us more about pet therapy and all its benefits.
I would love that. Thank you.
So thank you all for tuning in to this month's episode. I hope you found this conversation as helpful and fun as I did. I know Max and I are going to go do some reading to our rescue, Johnny, who's going to love it. And if you want to learn more about the impact healthy animals have on our well-being, visit us at elanco.com. And to stay up to date on the podcast, be sure to join us next month. See you all. Bye.